Welcome. This is Dr. Morton Botel, creator of the Botel Math Workshop for parents, tutors, and teachers. I'm Dr. Bonnie Botel Shepherd, and I want to welcome you to some time with Dr. Botel to learn about this wonderful experience for educators and children and parents. We're going to begin by looking at the actual activities and then some background with Dr. Botel answering questions about the Botel Math Workshop. So welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Good. Get us started.
Well, I thought it would be a good idea to avoid abstraction and get right into what kids do, what parents and kids do together. So I chose a couple of pages, and you and I will be the parent and the child.
Very good.
And it'll be possible to see how the relationship goes so that people who use this program won't need to feel scared because it has a different look. First of all, here's a page that we're going to work on together. I'm going to hold that up so we can see it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Has a little different look than most pages that parents are used to. But let's do it together, Bonnie. And what do you see on this page?
I see coins, pennies, and nickels.
Pennies and nickels, okay. And tell me more about what you see, like in box A, what's going on?
Well, it looks like there are 3 pennies over here, another penny, and then the back of a nickel.
Okay. Now, look at the bottom, there's a chart there. Do you
Right.
see anything that corresponds to what you see in that first box?
Well, I noticed that there are 4 pennies, and this says 4 pennies that
Right.
were with A.
Right.
And I'm noticing that there's 1 nickel, and this is 1 nickel over here.
Right. And what does the chart ask for?
Well, it's asking for a total, so I guess it's 4 pennies and 1 nickel. Meaning
Okay.
how many coins?
And how many coins, right. But then on the right-hand side, there's something else. What does it say up there?
Well, this says nickels, that's open, and this talks about how many cents.
Yeah, so this is how many coins,
Right.
and this is how many
Cents.
how much money.
Mhm.
So do you think you could finish that chart at the top
Sure.
by looking at that picture and making a record? Tell me what you come up with.
Well, the 4 pennies and the 1 nickel I come up with 5 coins.
5 coins.
Right.
And over here, how much money?
The 4 cents with 5 cents would equal 9 cents.
Right,
Mhm.
okay. Now, do you think you could do that with B and complete the rest of the chart?
Oh,
B, C?
sure.
Okay. Well,
Absolutely.
that's the basic idea.
Mhm.
What we did was have you investigate a picture and see that there are patterns involved and that you're making a distinction between the number of coins and the amount of money. And you have a record of your findings. So I can let you go ahead now because you have the basic pattern and complete your work. And if you need any help, I'll provide it as we go along.
Mhm.
But most of the time, when kids are working on this, they will say, don't tell me, I know what to do. And that's a good idea, to pull away and let them do it. And most of the time, when they become used to the book, the way you start the page is to say, what do you think's going on here?
Mhm.
And let them talk about it and see the patterns, and don't interfere with that, but also don't hesitate to come in and help them make the next move and the next move.
Mhm.
But once they become familiar with what's happening on the page, they move ahead on their own.
That's great.
Okay, so here's one more page. Hold that one up. That one has geometric shapes and a chart. That's pretty typical here, that there's a chart. So instead of doing one thing at a time, the kids are looking at patterns. And they see patterns in the pictures, and then they see that there's a record in which the patterns are organized in a very logical way. So let's talk about this page.
Mhm.
What do you see on this page, Bonnie?
I see lots of shapes. I see squares, triangles, rectangular shapes, circles. Some are bigger, some are a little
Yeah.
smaller.
Good. And tell me more about the shapes. What do you see near the shapes?
There's a letter.
A letter?
So, like there's an A for a large square.
Right,
a B for a small circle,
yeah,
and a C for a large triangle.
okay. And notice that, as usual, we have a chart so that you can keep a record of your observation.
Right.
So let's see what you might put in the first line here where they're talking about squares.
Okay, well, A is already the largest, and
Yeah.
that's over here. In between, I would put an H.
An H, right?
Right, and then the smallest one would be J.
Exactly. Now, do you think you can do the rest of the page?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the basic idea of all of the math workshop pages. We start by saying, what do you think is going on? And then, if necessary, you give them a few cues by asking questions. Do you see this? Do you see that? And then you say to the child, when you know what to do, I'm backing away so that you can finish this yourself. So that's the basic approach. The kids observe. There are always pictures to represent numbers or shapes, and there are always patterns, and those patterns end up being in a chart that has a logic to it.
So what type of help do the parents, tutors, or teachers get from the guide itself?
Okay, here's an example of the 2 pages we were just talking about and how the guide looks. You want to hold that up?
Sure.
You see that the pages that we're working on are reduced and all the answers are given. So the parent is never in doubt in case they feel uncomfortable. The kids won't feel uncomfortable, but sometimes parents and tutors, because this is so different looking from what they have typically worked with, feel uncomfortable, but they don't need to because all the answers are given. Plus, there's something else.
Oh.
If you, again, look at the page, and you will see that it describes the job. We call it the task. Hold that up. It describes the purpose. Why are we're doing this? And at the bottom, there is something else on every page. It's called headline story. Now, let me give you an idea of a headline story. Headline story might be 2 plus 6 equals 8. And the child is asked to tell a story about 2 plus 6 equals 8. And they might say, they're not sure what you mean, but I'd say, well, if I have 2 nickels and somebody else gives me 6 nickels, how many nickels do I have? Okay? Now, could you tell a story about 2 plus 6?
Oh, sure.
Give me any story that you can think of. I'm going to write it down, by the way, when you tell me the story. It'll be your story about that number sentence. Give me a 2 plus 6 story.
Okay, I went to the food store, and I got 2 apples, and then I got 6 grapes.
That's very good. So you end up with what?
8 pieces of fruit.
8 pieces of fruit, right. So you don't have to have the same thing when you're counting.
Right.
We're talking about the number of things. So I'm going to write that story down, and that's Bonnie's story. And every page has a headline story. And notice the difference between this. The usual math text would start off with, Bonnie went to the store. It's called a story problem. Bonnie went to the store and got 8 pieces of fruit, 2 apples and 6 bananas. How many pieces of fruit did she get? And then you're supposed to put down those numbers. Notice we work the opposite way. 2 plus 6 equals 8. And we say, what story can you tell about? How many stories could you tell about 2 plus 6 equals 8?
Infinite.
An infinite number, right. So textbooks do the one thing and you get the idea that there's one answer. Here, we give you a mathematical sentence, and you say, tell me any story you like about that. So that with every page, there is a page of activity where you observe patterns and put them into tables in a logical way. And then there's another place where you take a mathematical sentence and you create any story that you like, and I write it down, and I call this Bonnie's story. So we'll keep that's, by the way, one of the methods of teaching reading.
Right.
Notice you don't have to be able to read to do the pages in Math Workshop. So that any child can immediately go to mathematical patterns and start talking about the ideas. We want them to talk. Tell me what's going on here. Lots of talk. So that it's language development, it's thinking, it's patterns. and they begin to see the beautiful patterns and systems that exist within
That's
mathematics.
How much help and what type of help would the parent or tutor or teacher give to the child?
Okay, well, first of all, let's say what's in the guide. Hold the guide up. Again, just hold. In the front of this guide, there are lots of instruction about the theories behind it, additional understanding of ideas, but you don't have to read those first. You can go right to the kids' pages so that you don't get caught up in some of our theoretical language. But when you have done these activities for a while with the kids, go back and read the theory and the background, because that will enrich you as the teacher of your child, and that's important, but you don't have to do that first. A lot of people would get bogged down in the theory, and we don't want you to do that. We want you to see it as simple as the way I work with you, and then realize that you can go to the guide and see that the answers and the reason for doing the page is explicit there. So you have that kind of support, but make it easy on yourself and the child. You look at the page, you say, what's going on here? You help the child think about it and ask as many questions as you want to. And when the child is ready, they don't want you to get in the way. Let
Right.
them move ahead on their own.
Absolutely. What is the investigation discovery approach and why is it important?
Well, the typical approach in arithmetic that most people have learned and fear is practice and drill only. You notice that there are a lot of practice and drill in this. Huge amount of numbers and adding and eventually subtracting, multiplying, and so on. Huge amount of that. But the basic activity is looking for patterns, discovering mathematics, seeing that it is a pattern system. I'm going to give you an example of that. I say to kids in a kindergarten, here are 2 boxes, and I have 5 counters. How many different ways can I put these 5 counters in the 2 boxes? Anybody have a suggestion as to one of the ways I can do it? So one kid says, well, you could put 1 in the red box, and you would then put 4 in the white box. Okay, then you dump them. Is there any other way I can do that? Yeah, somebody else said, well, you can put 2, and then you'd have 3 in the other. Is there any other way I can do it? And I'm going to keep a record of this on the board. And I put a little chart. I put 1 and 4. Somebody else says 2 and 3. And somebody else says you could put 0 in one box and put. That is investigating and discovering. That's very different than saying to kids today we're going to learn 2 plus 3 equals 5. What you are doing is seeing the beautiful structure of mathematics. And what they will find out is that with 5, if you have counters, that there are exactly 6 ways that you can put 5 counters in 2 boxes if you use 0 as one of the ways. So all of the work we do has that character. You're investigating and talking about it, and you even make real world stories about 3 plus 2. Plenty of talk, plenty of connecting with mathematical ideas and with the real world.
Wonderful. So how would a teacher with a different set of materials apply these ideas with their own curriculum?
I think the best way to think about this is to imagine the teacher who teaches a basic program in science or reading or math. If you taught only that one program and the kids had no other experiences, they'd be missing a lot. The fact is, if you have a reading program or a social studies program, the kids ought to be having lots of other books and lots of other real-world experiences, and not just the one book and the one method. So that what this provides is something like in reading, the difference between reading the basal book and having a library of dozens and hundreds of books. We are the dozens and hundreds of books. So children need to have more than a one-track, this is exactly the way you do it. What we do is expose them to bigger connections and bigger ideas, like reading lots of books.
And then with math?
And the same is true with math. The work that we do is like adding extra books to a math program that is the program that they're using in school. It will simply reinforce what they're doing, but take them much further. Just as reading lots of books will cause the reader to become a real reader.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you very much. Again, this is Dr. Morton Botel. I'm Bonnie Botel Shepherd, and we thank you very much for spending time with us.